Thank you for joining us on our next Pitch Perfect podcast call. With a run-up to the Sales and Marketing Masterclass, we're talking to industry leaders in and around the East Riding and the whole North Humberside region. And today it's my pleasure to introduce Dave Petersen. In my eyes, he's a bit of a guru when it comes to property and property sales. So what I'll do is I'll just hand over to Dave and let him introduce yourself. If you still haven't heard about the Sales and Marketing Masterclass, just DM me at the bottom of this. You should see a link, and I'll send you all the information that you need. So without any further ado, David, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Lawrence. Really appreciate your time and, reaching out to me to come and have a chat. Dave Petersen. So a little bit on my background, I guess. Just a wheeling dealing kid. Grew up with my mum and a sister. Throughout, moving across Hull. I think that's probably where it stems from. Being so passionate about the city. Brandzone kid. We then moved across the city. My mum wanted to get us West Hull for schools. Grew up in Gypsyville. And yeah, from there, fell in love with rugby league. That was, my main goal and everything I set, vision to was playing professionally. Did manage to achieve that, so I was very fortunate there. Property was always a side hustle, really. I started out painting and decorating for my coach at the time. I'd say he's a huge influence on my life. Painting for £5 an hour or whatever it was back then, and I just seen a vision where I'd like to be a part of this more. I seen his success. Went on to do an apprenticeship, and then I talked about this previously. Actually, I did a little video on it, but rugby engulfed my life. Then property engulfed my life, so I let go of rugby. Then I went back to rugby, property. So it's been like that. For many years now. Just kind of developed in the property scene with regards to different things. I have owned and operated an estate agency. I can tell you more on that. It gets pretty boring after a while. I chose Australia over estate agency, so that was pretty cool. Came back, set up another one, and then find myself here today now, property consulting, more on I class it as a more B2B venture. B2C, it feels in estate agency generally because you're selling someone's, pride and joy and their asset. Yeah. Whereas now just dealing with investment properties, it's more of a B2B kind of journey. So that's what I do now, is helping people acquire properties or sell. So property consulting.
You mentioned two really important words to me. And when you mentioned them, I immediately thought of Arnold Schwarzenegger. For some reason, bear with me, right? But
not that big.
One. No, nobody is. But he's a big one for vision. And you mentioned vision, right? He had a vision from day one. He saw his idol on screen in the movies, and he decided that's what he was going to be. And he saw himself living this man's life. And when you mention vision, I immediately think someone with a vision they've got a massive advantage over everybody else. Do you feel that is you? Do you think that vision has helped you get to where you are now?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do think so. I think a couple of turning points in my life, like say I mentioned the coach that I had there, and he's a business partner now in some ventures. So we've had that tight relationship. So that, I've obviously always seen that with regards to the property. But then the flip side of that is the rugby journey. Many of my ex-teammates, I guess, and people I looked up to in the game, I seen them retiring, and I seen them going into jobs that I didn't want to see myself do. Realistically. I didn't want to go, throughout a career, and I wanted to play up until I was 30 odd, and probably still play now. That wasn't reality because, again, the vision I had was to make sure that I was safe after rugby, and that was a big part of my life. And I was really focused on that.
Cool, good insights. When you're talking about property sales, right? It's the only thing I've probably never ever sold. When you're dealing with property sales, do you think it's like every other type of sale? So there's a prospecting, there's a presentation, there's price conditioning. Do you treat it as a normal sale? Like you are, a kid just making a $5 an hour? Do you think it's still the same kind of thing, just on a bigger scale?
Yes and no. I think some things, is sales. You do have to, pitch yourself. That's I think the biggest difference. Quite often you're selling a service or a product. I think that sales is different. But actually, when you're dealing with something so emotional like a property and an asset, it's people's life savings, within that property. It's a more of an emotional roller coaster. So that pitch is slightly different. But yeah, you got to go through, that process. It's very hard to find landlords. Actually, they're fairly sneaky. So in my game now, that's a little bit harder. So prospecting them and finding them is tough. So you got to work hard there, and then make sure that pitch is on point. To get that win. In the estate agency world where it was more B2C, that pitch is really emotional. And you're pulling on different strings there. So it's slightly different. The sales techniques that is needed throughout all sales. But the approach is slightly different with regards to it being such an important asset in people's lives.
When I first got into direct sales, I was given one great bit of advice, and I've never forgotten it. Okay, people buy on emotion, and they back it up with logic. So once you hit that emotional button, and you influence them to feel it's their decision, it's them who have brought the emotions to the fore because you've triggered them. They then back it up with logic, and it's very rewarding to see. Is that the kind of thing you're on about when you sell on emotion?
It's different in property because yes, people get that emotion and they learn things out there, and that's not to discredit training in property and stuff like that, but they think that just buying property is like Monopoly. They really do. It's easy to purchase a property, but then the logic soon becomes really apparent because it is real money then. There's a lot to consider when buying a property. So I try to push that the logic has to come first before the emotion in property. And also, if some people find themselves renting out maybe their previous home, so they've kept it and bought another, thinking we want the asset to remain in our thing, but then the emotional attachment to that is very difficult to overcome. So they then can't see the logic of renting that property out, and it may be coming back tired. So property kind of it does flip that on its head. To be fair, what you're saying there is you have to try and get that logic first. I would say.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about your property expo. I think it's a class idea, bringing so many people involved with the property industry under one roof. What gave you the idea for that? What's the impetus to keep you going with it?
I think two things. Obviously, working in the estate agency world, there's a lot of closed doors between businesses, actually. You try to open that up and, they just work to their own. It's a big battle out there. It's quite often a race to the bottom. And I think we undersell, what we actually do as estate agents. And I think that was quite difficult for me. I was trying to open doors up and avenues to help each other across the sector. And that didn't really work. And I also think once they get a client, in general, they keep it. They want to sell them insurance. They want to sell them the brokerage for mortgages, solicitors. So they keep it really in-house and closed. And I just feel that that's not necessarily the best thing for a client. There's other people that can assist them in different ways. And I'm just talking here about, I help people, build a portfolio. Some estate agents are not too bothered about that. They're quite happy that they manage one or two properties for somebody. They don't necessarily give them the tools to build a portfolio. Does that make sense? Because
yes,
they keep them keep them wrapped up in a little bubble.
Yep.
So that was one thing. Want to get people to be collaborative across Hull, because we all work in the same industry. There's a lot of work to go around. And that's the key there. Get them in a room. Hopefully they're networking, they're talking to each other, and then start to do business. And that's the key. Other opportunities will then come of that.
I'm convinced it will.
The flip side, the other side of it, was born out of frustration. Part of my French is I generally am fixing people's fuck-ups. That being said, is people are buying property in Hull because it's renowned as cheap place to buy, high yield, make some money. People come here and buy a property. And as I said earlier, it's easy to buy. Yeah. But is the strategy right? How are you going to exit? Is it going to actually provide the income that you want? Is it, generally it's replacing something. So was you getting interest in the bank? Have you got an opportunity to invest in something else? So a lot of people don't do the logic first and see the emotions, see the possibilities, and jump head first. And that, was rather frustrating. And it's because people go to other, events, maybe, down south, or Manchester, Liverpool. And then people say, Hull is really cheap. Go there and buy a property. So, the frustration of that. I want people to come direct, talk to us on the ground, to know what to do, how to invest in Hull, and hopefully save them from going wrong.
Oh, that sounds incredible. It sounds great. And I think with that kind of attitude, you're going to get a lot of people coming to you purely because you don't seem to have an ulterior motive. You've said several times.
Lawrence, I want to make money. I want more people to come to me. And I guess the trade show for me personally, it's about exposure and getting out there. So I guess that's my ulterior motive. I do want to grow. So I think that's where I see it. Being honest.
I think you're going to do tremendously well.
Yeah. But as I said, there's a lot of business. So other property companies and people in the sector, they would do well from the trade show. And I really do believe that.
Talk about confidence for a minute. I want to finish just briefly touching on your confidence levels, right? Why are you so confident? It can't be just from rugby. When you're in a meeting with someone and you're putting together a proposal and you want them to come on board, how are you so confident to know you'll close that? Or are you confident enough to, if I don't close it, I don't care. I'm going to get out of here.
Probably the knowledge and time to really study and learn different parts of a journey. One of the biggest things I would say is listening. Listening to the client's needs. Then you can go away and create the proposal that suits them. And I think that then gives you the confidence to present it. There's multiple different factors. I think rugby league does have a massive part of it. Being put out there, on a whim and having to perform for, fans, family, teammates, coaches. There's a lot of pressure there. Rugby league and sport in general just teaches you, a different mentality. So you're probably not scared of a no as well. So you can quite confidently go out there and, present whatever you want. And you're not scared of a no. I think that certainly has a real
advantage.
To it. It is. So
I completely agree. I just wanted to get the point to people who are going to be watching this. Confident. If I'm recruiting a salesman, I don't even bother looking at their CV as to what they've done. I go straight down to the bottom where they've got hobbies. And anybody who is a team player, I'll interview them because I know they've got what you and I have got in spades. And no can't hurt you, but it's amazing how many people won't try because they don't want to hear a no.
Yeah, and that is it. And you briefly alluded to it. Then is I'm not too worried about that no as well. I know that I'll work hard to go and get a yes. From somewhere. the property market, is tough. Like I say, landlords and people are hard to find. So you've got to be resilient. And again, that definitely comes from sport. You're hard working. You got to go home and train. Put the extra effort in. And my motto as playing is, if I did the 1% things right, and this is from multiple coaches, if I did them 1% things right, I'd be in that team. And that's really how I got to play professional sport. I wasn't the most skillful player. I was just tough, and I wanted to do the 1% things right. And they often go unnoticed. And I think there's only certain people that do see that, whether that be in business or sport. I think they're really critical to, making things a success. So doing the 1% things right. The things that go unnoticed, generally speaking. I think I'm quite tough on myself with that.
I think self-discipline is very underrated. There's not many people got it. And I think when you meet somebody who has got it, they're head and shoulders above the competition. And you cannot fake it. You cannot borrow it. You cannot buy it. Yeah. But when you've got it, Dave, I want to thank you very much. Is there anything else you want to add? Otherwise, I can wrap this up. I want to thank you for your time.
Yeah, no, I think, like I say, please, have a look at the trade show. It's going to be good, successful for Hull. If we can get investment, we can regenerate it. I'm Hull-born bred. I want to see Hull, continue to thrive. We've got a great city here. So, back the trade show at the moment. That's what I'm up to. That's great. Wish people the best of luck with what you're doing. Sales is difficult, but be confident, resilient to it, and you go far.
Excellent. Thank you very much.